Hello, how's it going? In today's video, I'll be finishing Chapter 2 of Volume 2. This one's about a delicate balance, as well as Orgrim and Durotan. So let's go! This first part takes place around 99 years before the Dark Portal. Are you getting excited yet? After the Ogre's complete fail against the Draenei, the Orcs started to reconsider their stance that the Draenei were not a threat. Word of the Draenei's ridiculously quick victory began to spread. Their command of arcane and holy magics was unlike anything the Orcs had ever seen, and that unfamiliarity made the Orcs think, well, that's just downright bloody suspicious. The next Koshag festival was a bit tense. They discussed the Draenei, some clans suggesting they should just avoid the buggers at all cost. Others suggested they should view them as enemies and kill any that stray too far into Orc territory. The fact that the Draenei had decided to minimise ogre casualties was a bit weird. Maybe they were weak, maybe they hated fighting, and would submit to a worthy opponent. By the end of the festival, the clans hadn't come to any definite conclusion. The Draenei had never shown any aggression towards the Orcs, so the vast bulk felt like it was probably best to just keep their distance. But the Bladewind Clan felt differently. They inhabited the area between Terakar Forest and Nagrand, and they knew the Draenei's favourite trade routes. When a number of caravans went missing on the same day, Velen and the Exarchs were a little bit concerned. Upon further investigation, they found the burning remains of some traders. But amongst the dead Draenei were some dead Orcs, with Bladewind Clan tattoos. So it didn't take a rocket scientist to figure out who was responsible. However, some of the Draenei traders were missing, meaning the Orcs had taken prisoners. When this news reached the rest of the Draenei, they weren't very happy. They wanted to retaliate. But Velen put his foot down and said no. He allowed the Rangari to launch covert rescue missions, but an all-out attack on the Bladewind Orcs would only cause chaos. The Bladewind Clan was small and would be pretty easy to defeat. But then what? Do you really think that the Orc clans would just accept that? The answer's no. They bloody wouldn't. Velen didn't want war, but he also knew the Orcs respected bravery, so further caravans were protected by Vindicators, openly displaying weapons glowing with holy light. Any Orc raiders that attacked caravans were defeated, although sometimes they weren't, and more prisoners would be taken. The Rangari managed to rescue some prisoners, but not all of them. Those that weren't rescued would spend the rest of their lives in slavery. Some of them even bore children. And these half-breed children were reviled by both Orc and Draenei alike. Nobody liked them. But the Bladewinds did begin to develop a respect for the Draenei. Raids only took place on lightly guarded caravans, or when the Orcs were being led by a particularly bold or dumb leader. So that's nice. And now we're 13 years before the Dark Portal. That was quick. As the years passed, there was a sort of balance between the Orcs and Draenei. There would be the odd skirmish that ended in bloodshed on both sides, but not all encounters were violent. For example, 2 young Orcs crossed paths with the Draenei, and it was great. Orgrim hailed from the Blackrock clan, and Durotan from the Frostwolves. They'd met at a Koshag festival and had challenged each other in feats of strength and willpower. Their rivalry had blossomed into a bromance that would last for many years. Friendship between members of different clans was usually looked down upon, but the clan elders had permitted Orgrim and Durotan to maintain their bond. One summer, they'd met at the border between Frostfire Ridge and Gorgrond and had set out into the thick forest of Terakar. They were having a little race. But then they were attacked by an enraged Heimul ogre. The 2 young Orcs were pretty strong, but they couldn't match the might of the ogre and were kinda screwed. But Rangari scouts had been tracking this ogre, and they appeared out of nowhere and took it down. The party's leader, Restalan, admired Orgrim and Durotan's bravery, but knew that this area wasn't safe. He offered to escort them to the nearby Draenei settlement of Telmor. The young Orcs were wary, but they accepted the offer of safe haven. Few Orcs had ever been inside a Draenei settlement. Once there, they were shocked by the Draenei's hospitality and also the technology and craftsmanship of the city. It just so happened that Velen was in Telmor on this particular occasion, which is convenient. He'd recently been experiencing some visions of the Orcs united and marching for war, as well as a great shadow slowly creeping over Draenor. So he requested a little sit-down with the 2 Orcs. Velen wasn't entirely sure he could trust these visions, but he was determined to find out. Whilst meeting Orgrim and Durotan, he observed them carefully. However, he didn't sense any darkness in either of them. In fact, they actually seemed quite nice. Velen then ordered the Rangari scouts to escort Orgrim and Durotan back to the borders of Gorgrond. The 2 Orcs hadn't been in Telmor for long, but they had learned much. When they returned home, they shared tales of the hospitality that had been shown to them and the extraordinary sights that they'd seen. And that was one of the last peaceful encounters between Orcs and Draenei. And we're leaving it there! We've reached the end of Chapter 2. Chapter 3 is called Rise of the Horde, and by the end of it, we'll be back on Azeroth, basically. If that doesn't excite you, then I don't know why you're watching these videos, to be honest. If you enjoyed this video, press the like button. Also, you can subscribe if you want. But all that's left to say is, thanks very much for watching, and see ya!